Did you know in Titanic, the elderly couple hugging on their bed while the water floods their room was actually based on real passengers? They were the owners of the Macy's department store in New York. Rosalie and Isidore died on the Titanic, but Rosalie was offered a seat on one of the lifeboats. She refused so she could be with her husband, but the scene that depicted this was cut from the final film. Rosalie is actually the one that originally said, "Where you go, I go," which inspired Rose's line. Also, while James Cameron wanted Rose and Jack to be completely fictitious, it turns out that there really was a Jay Dawson that died. His body was salvaged and buried in Nova Scotia. His gravestone is still the most widely visited in the cemetery. Did you know in Star Wars The Force Awakens, while Rey escapes the Starkiller base, she overhears a conversation that two stormtroopers are having, and she hears them discuss the new BT-17. This is a reference to the first Star Wars film when Obi-Wan overhears two stormtroopers having a similar conversation about the new BT-16. George felt that the film took too much content from the original trilogy, and he didn't enjoy the constant references. Did you know in Lord of the Rings The Two Towers? While in the film, Lord Elrond sends a squadron of elves to help Rohan at Helm's Deep. This actually doesn't happen in the book. In the book, the elves are already preoccupied with defending their homes from Sauron's forces who are already attacking them at the same time. They decided to add this storyline into the movie to show their sacrifice. This also avoided the suggestion that the elves were leaving the fate of Middle-earth to the humans in the end. Did you know in Spider-Man 3, originally, Sam Raimi was going to develop Peter even more with the focus being on Peter learning that he isn't a sinless vigilante. He would also start to see humanity in the people he considered to be criminals. This can still be seen as the Venom symbiote brings out the darker aspects of Peter's personality. Sam mentioned that Peter sees himself as a sinless hero, and the Venom symbiote experience was his way of letting Peter see that there's a little bit of everything in everyone. Did you know in Avengers Infinity War, Doctor Strange actually uses a character that bestowed powers on an X-Men character? When Strange is fighting Thanos on Titan, he casts a spell that has red tendrils envelop the Mad Titan. These tendrils are known as the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak, and they're supposed to be unbreakable. They're named after the demon Cyttorak, and Juggernaut gained his powers after touching a gem that was imbued with the demon's powers. Did you know in The Dark Knight Rises? During Bruce Wayne's visit to the doctor, he's told a list of degenerative injuries that he has suffered. These include the lack of cartilage, scar tissues, and the use of a mechanical knee brace. These are very similar to the 4-issue comic miniseries Kingdom Come. In Kingdom Come, an older Bruce Wayne has to wear an exoskeleton to move, since he suffers from years of physical wear and tear. Did you know in Joker, you can actually point out the Brooklyn Army Terminal's annex at the Arkham State Hospital? This specific hospital is a recurring milestone location for Arthur Fleck. During the early conversations with his social worker, it can be understood that he spent some time in Arkham for actions that happened before the timeline of the film. Arthur's mother's records also indicate that both of the Fleck family members have gone in and out of the facility from time to time. Joker's mother might be part of a deeper secret. Towards the end, Arthur looks at a picture of his mother, and there's a message that is initialed TW for Thomas Wayne. This could mean that Thomas was actually Arthur's biological father, or Penny's mental state made her forge it to go along with her delusion. Did you know in X-Men The Last Stand, the Golden Gate Bridge sequence was originally slated to be in the middle of the film? They were going to have Magneto use it to free Mystique from Alcatraz Island, and the facility would have been revived as a mutant prison. The final battle was originally going to take place in Washington, D.C., and it was going to be home to Worthington Labs as well. This way, he could have destroyed the Cure and taken control of the White House in one move. Did you know in Thor, there's a point where the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents track the Asgardians during their search for Thor. They end up spotting Sif, Fandral, and Hogun, but Volstagg seems to be absent from the group. In one of the deleted scenes, we see that Volstagg actually goes through and knocks out the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. He tracks them by their food, and he proceeds to steal it after knocking them out. Did you know in Django Unchained, the finished draft of the script had the character of Billy Crash written as a much more brutal and sadistic person? There was even a scene of him raping and tormenting Broomhilda in his cabin that they cut from the film. Originally, Billy's death was going to come from Django taking a large knife and throwing it into his chest as he left the cabin after his assault on Broomhilda. Did you know in Terminator 2 Judgment Day? The scene where the T-1000 flies the helicopter almost didn't work out. During the scene, the T-1000 has 4 arms, 2 for flying and 2 for firing and reloading. While they were shooting the freeway scene at night, James remembered that the crew had actually made a special suit for those specific scenes. He ended up having to wake them up in the middle of the early morning so that they could get the suit to the set in time, since the freeway would reopen at 5 a.m. Did you know in Batman Forever, during the scene when Riddler and Two-Face invade Bruce's home, Two-Face flips his coin 3 separate times? Many people thought he kept flipping until he got the desired outcome, but it was later clarified that he was actually flipping the coin 3 different times to decide the fate of the 3 people in the manor. The 3 people in the manor were Alfred Pennyworth, Chase Meridian, and Bruce Wayne. Did you know in The Notebook, the film was shot out of order, and they started with the after 7 years scene with Allie and Noah. They were very shy and unsure around each other during these scenes, but then the entire cast and crew went on a Christmas break. During the break, Ryan had to lose his beard and 20 pounds so that he could play a younger Noah. When they came back, Rachel and Ryan were much more comfortable around each other to play their younger selves. Ryan also went into intensive preparations for his role before the filming began. He lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and for 2 months, he decided to row the Ashley River every morning and built furniture throughout his days. Did you know in Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton ad-libbed one of the most famous lines in the film? During the graveyard scene after the Maitlands leave, Beetlejuice kicks a tree and it falls. Originally, it wasn't supposed to fall, but on this take, Keaton kicks it and it falls down. He then ad-libs, "Nice model!" While Keaton said this as a joke to the set designer, Burton loved it so much that he left it in. Did you know in Hocus Pocus 2, the Sanderson sisters bring back their special walk that they use when they're on a mission? During the walk, they pull their skirts up and walk in step with each other while exaggerating each step. While fans have ended up calling this step hag tracks, it turns out that the original cast gave it a proper name during the first film. They call it slurking, which is a mixture between slinking and lurking. We can also see the development of Salem over the course of 2 films. Originally, the Sanderson house was deep in the woods, but at the time of the first film, it's located just outside the main part of town. Now it's located properly on a busy street that's become Gilbert's shop. Did you know in Jurassic World Dominion, Fallen Kingdom made it a point that the dinosaurs on Isla Nublar were the last of their kind, and it was implied that all of the other dinosaurs of Isla Sorna had died. This movie changes that by explaining that there were specific dinosaurs that were evacuated between Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. Some of the survivors are some of the velociraptors from the pack in Jurassic Park 3, which you can see in the Dino Tracker website, and the doe and buck T-Rexes from the Lost World Jurassic Park. Did you know in House of the Dragon? One of the biggest differences between the show and the book is the age difference in characters that are included. For example, King Viserys is being portrayed as an older man with graying hair, but in the book, he wasn't even 30 when his wife Aemma died. Rhaenyra is another one who is shown to be an older teenager at first. In the book, Rhaenyra is only 8 years old when she's proclaimed to be Viserys' heir. Did you know in Star Trek, there's a deleted scene where Nero's interrogated by a Klingon while on a prison planet called Rura Penthe. This planet plays a huge role in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. During that film, Chekhov called the planet the aliens' graveyard, since aliens from all over the galaxy that had been convicted by the Klingons and sent there to work in the dilithium mines. The life expectancy for a prisoner sent there was 1 year at most. There's also a scene where Uhura complains about being assigned to the Farragut. This is the same ship that Kirk started out on after graduating, and the man that it's named after coined the phrase, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." Did you know in Game of Thrones, Daenerys' dragon's name actually foreshadows their purposes in the show? Viserion was named after her brother Viserys. Viserys only used Daenerys for his own selfish purposes, and Viserion ends up getting killed by the Night King and brought back as her enemy. Rhaegal was named after her older brother Rhaegar, who was loved throughout Westeros. When Rhaegal is killed, all of Daenerys' kindness disappears with it. Drogon is named after Khal Drogo, who vowed to conquer and destroy Westeros. In the end, Daenerys uses him to destroy King's Landing. Did you know in Samaritan, during the scene where Sam is injured in the hospital, you can hear the PA saying, "Dr. Davis, telephone please. Dr. Davis, telephone please." This wasn't recorded specifically for the film. It's an old hospital sound effect that can be found on an unidentified sound effect album. It was used famously in the 1988 album Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche, in the opening of Motley Crue's TNT, and in Catapult by Phish. It's also been used in numerous TV shows and movies.